Welcome, brave souls. Once again, you've crossed the threshold, stepped into a place where reality blurs and the air itself seems to whisper secrets meant to stay buried. You're not just reading words, you're walking beside us, through shadows older than memory, into places the sun dares not touch. Chapter 4 is no longer a story, it's an invitation. An invitation to follow two journalists who thought they were chasing a legend, only to find the legend was already watching them. Every crack in the walls, every flicker in the corner of their eyes, it's all part of something much larger, something that's been waiting. The Lynch Manor stands ahead, its doors slightly open as though expecting you. History here doesn't just haunt, it breathes, it reaches, it hungers. But before you follow us into the dark, ask yourself, how much do you really want to know? Because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Ready? Then step inside. Chapter 4. The Lynch Manor. John and I set out for the Lynch Manor in the evening. The road there turned out to be longer than we had expected. The winding, cracked asphalt gradually gave way to a narrow, almost invisible forest path. The trees closed in above us like a black canopy, their branches swaying in the wind as if whispering softly. Occasionally, pale sunlight filtered through the crowns, creating ghostly patterns on the ground. When we finally emerged from the thickets, we saw what we had come for, the Lynch Manor. A grand yet time-worn building towered over the wild, abandoned landscape. A three-story house with steep towers that resembled a medieval castle, once magnificent, but now the plaster had crumbled away and the wind howled through shattered window panes. The dust-covered windows reflected the grayish sky like lifeless eyes. A sprawling, overgrown garden surrounded the estate. Once it must have had manicured lawns and flower beds, but now everything had turned into chaos. Wild weeds, dry ivy, and twisted trees growing in unnatural poses. At the edge of the grounds stood a fountain, once elegant with marble figures, but now cracked and covered in moss. Instead of water, its basin was filled with dirty leaves. A wide stone pathway led straight to the massive oak doors. The metal handles, shaped like lion heads, were rusted, and the doors themselves seemed to barely hang on their hinges. This house belonged to the Lynch family for over 2 centuries, John said, running his fingers over the cracked surface of the doors. They say their family was highly influential in town, but after the horrific events of the mid-20th century, the manor was abandoned. What horrific events? I looked at him with curiosity. Some say the last owner, Henry Lynch, went insane. He vanished under mysterious circumstances, and his wife and children were found dead in the basement. The police never reached a clear conclusion about what had happened, and the case was soon closed. Since then, the house has stood empty. I felt a chill run down my spine. The wind whispered through the tree branches as if confirming John's words. "Well, are you ready?" John looked at me with a mischievous grin, though a shadow of doubt flickered in his eyes. I silently nodded and took the first step toward the doors, feeling my heart start to beat faster. The doors groaned as we pushed them open. Inside, the air smelled of dampness, dust, and something old, almost forgotten. In the beams of our flashlights, the outlines of a grand hall emerged. High ceilings, massive wooden stairs leading to the second floor, and old paintings on the walls, covered in cobwebs. "It looks even worse than I imagined," John muttered, carefully stepping on the cracked parquet floor. I ran my flashlight along the walls. Portraits hung there. Their eyes seemed alive. They followed us wherever we went. We ventured deeper into the manor. We passed through the living room where old furniture was covered in a thick layer of dust. In the center of the room stood a grand piano, its keys protruding from the darkness as if someone had recently tried to play them. A hallway led to even darker parts of the house. We peeked into one of the rooms. It was a library. Shelves reaching up to the ceiling were packed with books and leather bindings, all covered in thick dust. Some volumes lay scattered on the floor, as if someone had hastily torn them from the shelves and discarded them. At the far end of the hallway, a door was slightly ajar. Our flashlights illuminated an old study. A massive wooden desk stood in the center, and on it lay an open album with yellowed photographs. I stepped closer and examined the pictures. They showed members of the Lynch family, but some of their faces seemed blurred. "This is getting a bit creepy," John murmured, stepping back. I felt the tension in the air. The house breathed with the past, its history seeping into every corner, every shadow. "Did you hear that?" John suddenly froze. I held my breath. Somewhere in the far end of the hallway, something creaked softly. The wind? A rat? Or something else? "Let's go check it out," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to know the answer. Step by step, we moved toward the end of the hallway where something unknown awaited us. The air inside the manor seemed thicker with every step, as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for us to make one wrong move. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, and every creak beneath our feet felt like a whispered warning. Whatever secrets this place held, they weren't meant to be unearthed by curious hands and flickering flashlights. But now that we were here, there was no turning back. Before we take that final step into the unknown, before we peel back the last layer of history wrapped in rot and silence, we need you with us. Like this video if you're ready to face the darkness. Subscribe to the channel if you want to uncover every chilling piece of this story, and drop a comment. What do you think we'll find behind the next door? Because in a place like this, the scariest thing isn't what's hiding in the dark, it's knowing you're not alone.